afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us here today. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are gathered today in the Treaty 7 territory, traditional land of the First Nations and Métis people. I am Mike Ellis. I'm the Deputy Premier for the Province of Alberta, as well as the Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Services. It's, of course, great to be here for this very important announcement with the City of Calgary Police Chief Mark Neufeld, Superintendent of Alberta Sheriffs Mark Letourneau, Rick Genet of the Assistant District Commander for the Southern Alberta RCMP. Thank you, sir, for being here. And of course, I want to thank the sheriffs and our valued policing partners for the vital work that they do to serve and protect Albertans every day. Today, I'm pleased to announce that a new Alberta Sheriffs team created to help track down criminals wanted by authorities is now up and running across the province. The Fugitive Apprehension Sheriff Support Team, known as FASST, started operations in February of this year in Edmonton and is already making a difference. In just 7 months, the team has executed more than 1,300 warrants. Now, that may seem like a large number, but there are more than 82,000 warrants that are active in the province of Alberta at this time. So, what does that mean in regards to the 1,300 warrants? Well, that means that more than 300 offenders have been apprehended, taken into custody, and are now off the streets. It's also worth noting that of the nearly 300 arrests that have been made, more than 260 have been Tier 1 fugitives. So those are offenders who are the most dangerous, the most prolific, and of course high-risk offenders in the province. Quite frankly, taking these individuals off the streets and putting them back into the courts demonstrates our government's commitment to making Alberta safer. In fact, to show you just how quickly this team has had an impact, in their first 2 days on the job, FAST members in Edmonton helped police locate and arrest a prolific child sex offender who breached parole conditions, as well as a man who was wanted for first-degree murder in connection with a gang-related homicide in August of 2023. Rest assured, the number of arrests have risen steadily since those early days, and we expect it will continue to do so in the months and years to come. The provincial government is providing $2.6 million in operating funding for the FAST teams, which will have members in Edmonton and Calgary, 7 officers in each city who will work with police services throughout Alberta to ensure that those accused and convicted of crimes in our province are brought to justice. For example, this could be people accused of serious crimes who have failed to appear in court or have breached their bail conditions, or it could be convicted criminals who have breached the conditions of their parole or statutory release in the community. I've said it before, and I will say it again. The federal government must implement a serious bail reform to put a stop to Bill C-75. This bill has been a disaster for our communities, and that is why our government will continue to advocate that Bill C-75 be repealed. Bill C-75 has perpetuated a cycle of crime and victimizes law-abiding citizens over and over again. But I have also been clear that Alberta's government will do whatever it takes in its area of authority to ensure that our communities are safe and to keep Albertans safe. FAST is another way that we are delivering on that commitment. Having additional resources to apprehend fugitives with outstanding warrants significantly reduces the likelihood of them reoffending and continuing to victimize Albertans. Justice demands that people accused of a crime must have their day in court, and Alberta's government will do whatever it takes to keep people safe. Another way FAST benefits the safety of our communities is by freeing up resources for police services such as those in Calgary and Edmonton so that they can stay focused on other local priorities. And we know that police services find and arrest dangerous fugitives every day. However, there are a vast number of wanted fugitives out there at any given time. As I mentioned, over 82,000 warrants are currently in the province of Alberta, and it is a significant job, and now the police have support in Calgary from the Alberta Sheriffs. This is part of our wider strategy to support Alberta's police services in new ways and put more boots on the ground in places where they are needed. This is being demonstrated through our government's initiatives such as the Rural Alberta Provincial Integrated Defence, or what is known as the RAPID program, our Safer Communities teams, our Safer Communities and Neighbourhoods teams, which is known as the SCAN program, and providing funding for the 100 officers on the streets in both Calgary and Edmonton. Furthermore, our sheriffs are also helping to keep our highways safe, and since being given the authority to investigate impaired driving as part of the rapid response in 2021, the Sheriff Highway Patrol has removed more than 4,700 impaired drivers from Alberta's roads. Police officers and sheriffs share a common commitment, which is protecting Albertans and keeping our communities safe. Working together, they can be even stronger and even more effective. FASST is yet another positive step in that direction, and Alberta's government will continue to look for new and innovative ways to, for the province, as law enforcement agencies, to work together towards safer communities for all Albertans. So to all members of the Alberta Sheriffs, Alberta Police Services, let me just say that your willingness to try new approaches to solving problems and in the spirit of cooperation, you bring these joint efforts that are both noticed and both appreciated. But above all, please accept my heartfelt gratitude on behalf of Albertans for the work that you do every day to keep us all safe. And I thank you, and I'd like to now invite Superintendent Mike Letourneau to the podium to say a few remarks from the Alberta Sheriffs. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Ellis. It's great to be here for such a momentous occasion and to be joined by our partners in law enforcement. As Minister Ellis mentioned, FASST became operational in February of this year. Its impact has been both quick and immense. Through close collaboration with police services, we've already managed to remove hundreds of dangerous offenders from Alberta's streets and communities. Last count, FASST had executed 1,386 warrants and apprehended 303 fugitives. We do expect those numbers to keep rising. We look forward to continuing to work with our police partners to make that happen. In terms of composition, FASST, or the Fugitive Apprehension Sheriff Support Team, is made up of 14 members. Those individuals are split evenly between Edmonton and Calgary and the southern regions and northern regions of our province. All of them operate in plainclothes capacity. They've received intensive, specialized training as a part of the FASST onboarding. In short, they're extremely well equipped with the knowledge, skills, and professionalism that this role demands. Police services find and apprehend fugitives every single day across the province, and they do a commendable job of it. The intent of FAST is not to replace or take over that function, but rather augment it and support it. More resources means faster results and safer operations. FAST presence also frees up time for resources so that police can now allocate it to other areas of frontline operations. When we speak of fugitives, we're referring to individuals that are wanted on outstanding warrants, but who, for whatever reason, have evaded arrest or escaped custody. Not only are these individuals dangerous, they're considered a risk to the public, they've avoided accountability for their criminal actions. It's imperative they face justice and are arrested before they can reoffend and harm Albertans. There have been literally hundreds of success stories so far in over 31 towns and cities throughout Alberta. It's well worth noting that a vast majority of the arrests, over 260, have been made on Tier 1 offenders. Tier 1 status is reserved for the most dangerous and prolific offenders in the province. It includes individuals who are generally considered the greatest threat to Alberta lives, livelihoods, and property. These offenders are treated as the highest priority among fugitives. Their apprehension is considered to be the most impactful in terms of protecting public safety. To put that in context, it includes everything from child predators wanted for sexual interference to violent offenders wanted for first-degree murder. FAST has executed warrants on and apprehended fugitives wanted for some of the most heinous crimes one can commit. This is including robberies, kidnappings, and sexual assaults. Apprehending these individuals and removing them from society has an immediate and profound effect on community safety. I'm extraordinarily proud of the work the team's carried out thus far. Of course, many of our successes have been shared with various police services that have directly contributed to FAST implementation and operations. We're tremendously grateful to our policing partners for their cooperation, their collaboration, and their ongoing contributions. Thank you. Working alongside community members, police, and other stakeholders will contribute to our ongoing success. I thank you, and now I invite Chief Neufeld to the podium.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming. Minister, thanks for the invitation to participate today. Really, I don't have a ton to say. I'm happy to entertain any questions later, but on behalf of the Calgary Police Service, I just want to commend the sheriffs and commend the province. This is a positive initiative, to be sure. This is an initiative which, as has been said, will augment safety for Albertans and Calgarians for sure, and it will complement the good work that's currently being done by, certainly in the city of Calgary, by the Fugitive Apprehension Detail, which is part of CPS, and our home team, which stands for our Habitual Offender Management and Enforcement Team. So whether it be searching for individuals who are wanted on outstanding warrants, which has been mentioned, people who have been on parole or probation and violated the terms of those orders, or even high-profile cases where individuals have been identified for crimes, but yet to have been arrested. There are more than enough people to be arrested right now in our communities, with everything that's going on. One thing we know is that offenders are mobile. We've seen that particularly in the most prolific offenders in the province. We see that they move between communities very fluidly. So it's important that law enforcement be coordinated and aligned in the same way, and that we can move similarly. You know, a good recent example, and Superintendent Janae can probably speak to it better than I, but with the case with the murder in southern Alberta and Elijah Strawberry being out on the run for so long. So that started in Calgary. The murder took place in RCMP territory, and then it had tentacles into many communities along the way. So clearly law enforcement has to be equally as nimble and equally as agile in terms of being able to move and cooperate in ways that we need to bring those offenders into custody. So this will be a good example of that. As I said before, with the numbers of people that need to be arrested at this particular time, there's more than certainly CPS or any of the individual agencies would look after on their own. I certainly anticipate the sheriff's team can assist in cases where we believe that offenders in Calgary that our teams were looking for have left into a rural area, and by comparison, when offenders from rural areas or other communities have come into Calgary, which they also do, our efforts will definitely be complementary and aligned with one another. So I'm looking forward to that. I think, as has been mentioned, things can happen faster, things can happen quicker, and frankly, just put more pressure on. We prioritize resources around the highest harm and highest risk offenders, for sure. You heard about Tier 1 offenders and individuals. With the data, we can figure out in the province who the highest harm people are and monitor them around the province to the benefit of Albertans. This way, we can put more pressure on faster and in a more coordinated and aligned way, and this will certainly help to move along that work. I think I will leave it there and turn it over to my colleague from the RCMP, Superintendent Rick Janae. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. As my colleague said, I'm with the Alberta RCMP. I'm responsible as the Assistant District Officer for Southern Alberta District. And what I would reiterate with the Minister and my colleagues have said, that policing is an industry where there's a lot of job security. There's more work, always more work available than can be managed by any one unit. And so the opportunity to see increased funding from the province to support crime reduction through arresting prolific and dangerous offenders is something that will be of benefit to all Albertans. We have units as well. Southern Alberta and all the districts have crime reduction units that can take on this type of work. But the reality is, and they've already been working closely with the FASST teams, it just allows us and them to both coordinate and prioritize and be able to locate and incapacitate more offenders that are affecting our communities. We as the RCMP are proud of our partnerships with all of the agencies across the country, and having additional roles that they can take on safely with the training that they have is something that we look forward to. And it's quite frankly not a new partnership. We've had partnerships with the sheriffs and the other police agencies throughout our history, and we value that partnership and the partnership we have with government. Ultimately, we know that increased attention to the impacts of prolific offenders and dangerous offenders will bring additional community safety to our citizens. And so we're looking forward to continuing to innovate and find ways of working together to address community concerns and enhance public safety. Thank you very much.
This brings us to the question and answer portion of our announcement. We do have a number of journalists here on the floor. If you do have a question, I'd ask you to just step to the mic and please state your name and your outlet.
Aaron James, Live Wire, Calgary. A question for the Chief Neufeld, please. Chief Neufeld, I'm curious what the FASST team does in terms of maybe resource deployment at CPS and what this basically means for the way the operational works, the deployment-wise, and duty shifts and things like that.
Yeah, I think that was the additional layer of complexity for us because we were one of the agencies that actually had an existing unit doing this type of work. But the reality of it is I think this adds capacity, as has been mentioned. So, I mean, there's that additional piece of making sure that we're deconflicting and making sure that we're working on different people and making sure that the work is complementary. But as I say, I also think it's good for Calgarians. As we see certain offenders who've been targeted leave the Calgary community, we can rely on our partners to be able, whether it be FAST or whether it be RCMP in their jurisdictions, to be able to pursue into those locations, which allows us to leave our resources in Calgary to deal with issues and offenders that are in Calgary and harming Calgarians. So I think that's good. I think, you know, this really is about collaboration and just adding capacity to a system that very much needs it.
Chief, an off-topic question. We have a death in custody this morning. Can you speak at all to that, please?
Just at a high level, obviously, it's under investigation by ACERT, and investigation is obviously in the early stages. But I think the situation just highlights, you know, how something that comes in, a call that comes in to police and police or dispatch can appear to be innocuous. And then once police get on scene, it can be anything but very quickly. So certainly my thoughts are with the officers that are involved for sure. It was a very harrowing experience, as well as the family of the individual who passed away in the situation. But in terms of what happened there and the details, those are be for ACERT right now. And I wouldn't want to say anything that would hamper their efforts in that regard. So thank you.
And Chief, if I may also ask another question on that incident. I know you are very limited in terms of speaking on that incident, but can you tell us a little bit in terms of the thinking or the process that goes behind an officer when they have to use a weapon, and if they have to use a different weapon as well too?
Yeah, I think, as you know, officers are trained to de-escalate situations in the best way that they can. Some situations, though, are escalated by design, or they start out that way. So very difficult to sometimes de-escalate when people are struggling, whether it be with mental health or addictions or a combination thereof. And again, those will all be things that will be worked out through the investigation. But I think probably the surprising thing sometimes is, again, there's certain calls that come in when officers respond, they know inherently those are high-risk calls, and sometimes it isn't. And again, without speaking so much about this case, we had an awards ceremony recently, and there was an officer who responded to a complaint of a noisy stereo in a car. And so that, to an officer, is a very innocuous thing. He pulled up in the parking lot, and the individual got up and leveled a shotgun at him and shot him at him as soon as he got out of his car. So that's what I mean. Like, when you try to reflect on things like that you think are situations that are, you know, are going to be innocuous or something that might not carry a lot of obvious danger, but I guess it just underscores that there's no such thing as a low risk call. There's just unknown risk calls.
And if I may also ask a question to the superintendent as well too. When it comes to the FAST program, I know. Oh, sorry. Yes. Sorry. I know the program just started, I believe, back in February. Just in terms of the responsiveness, in terms of getting fugitives, can you give us, I guess, a time range? I know it's still very, very, very recent, but a range in terms of how soon, how quickly some fugitives have been able to be apprehended?
Yeah, some fugitives, because they haven't moved around a lot and they're at locations that we're able to identify, that happens very, very quickly, of course. There's others where we have to use pretty intensive investigative tactics to locate them and arrest. So those take a little bit longer, but it's the whole gamut, right, from immediate to a lengthy period of time, really. So.
We do have some more questions from the floor.
Aaron with Livewire again. Question for Minister Ellis, please. Minister Ellis, I'm assuming that the lead up to putting this funding forward came as a result of many conversations with law enforcement agencies across the province. Maybe give us a detail what some of those conversations looked like and how that feedback went into this program.
Sure. Well, as I've said many times before, we try to do our best to augment and support all police services in Alberta. You know, we did hear feedback, not just from community members, but you know, certainly, obviously from law enforcement, that you know, there are shortages out there. And as you've heard me say time and time again, when it comes to a 911 call, I expect somebody to go to that call. I don't care what the uniform is. And so if we can free up some of those frontline officers from, you know, taking time out of their day to you know, go on the hunt for active warrants, as an example, and you know, the folks in the sheriffs can maybe do that duty as they have been doing in rural Alberta, then that just frees up more frontline officers in rural Alberta to take active calls to service. So, you know, a lot of it was born from just talking to community members, and a lot of folks don't realize this, but historically, I think it was well over 15 years ago, so I think I was a young constable at that particular time, maybe 20 years ago, that there was a fugitive apprehension team about 20 years ago, and through choices that were made by successive governments down the road, they didn't exist. But you know, from my perspective as kind of a frontline officer myself back in the day, I thought that there was real value to that in helping Calgary, Edmonton, Lethbridge, the RCMP in rural Alberta. And so, you know, I think the stats that I've seen have kind of proven that out, you know, seeing that there's been over 1,300 warrants that have been, you know, taken out of the system, that over 300 offenders have been arrested. So, you know, so far I'm very pleased with the numbers that we're getting regarding outcomes.
Did you have a follow-up question?
Yeah. Minister, Justice Mark Tyndale, pretty strong words against the government's funding of the courts as it is right now. Obviously, building up Bill 75, offenders, not enough justice of the peace, not enough crown prosecutors. Like, what does the conversation look like on a cabinet level to put more funding onto the other side once these offenders are caught and they're put into the justice system?
Well, I mean, there's two components of that. First of all, a couple components of that. That's been a question better suited for Minister Amory. However, I can tell you from a federal judge's perspective, I know Minister Amory has been advocating for the federal government to appoint more judges here in Alberta, and certainly my conversations with Minister Amory is that, you know, he's talked to the federal justice minister. He's encouraged him to appoint more justices in the province of Alberta. I know that, that judge that you reference is not incorrect. I mean, when we have more judges, there's more court cases that can be heard and can be dealt with, and it doesn't provide a clogging within the system. I can tell you from a provincial government perspective, because there's provincial court judges, I know Minister Amory is going through the process, and at least I feel from a cabinet perspective on a fairly regular basis, we're certainly doing our part to appoint judges in the province of Alberta.
Do we have any more questions here from the floor? We don't. I'll get us to head over to the phone lines. I do believe we have some questions on the phone.
Hi, your next question is from Jonathan Bradley of Western Standard. Your line is already open. Okay. Hello, Mr. Ellis. Thank you for taking my question. So you spoke about the Fugitive Apprehension Sheriff Support Team being expanded across Alberta now. What was the process like to obtain this expansion?
Well, this started about, I think it was about a year ago. Is that right, Mike? Yeah, about a year ago. And as I've already previously mentioned, some of the successes that they've had. You know, the last cog in this was the Calgary Police Service, and that I totally respect what the chief was saying in regards to this. They already had their own fugitive apprehension team. They had to make sure that there was no deconfliction, and here we are today. So I mean, this is good. I mean, we are trying to augment and support all police services in Alberta. This is a net benefit for not only all of Alberta, but it's a net benefit for the people of Calgary. And this is why we're doing this announcement here today. I mean, we're doing whatever we can as law enforcement, as the government, to keep Albertans safe, and that's what we're trying to do, Jonathan.
Okay. And my follow-up pertains to the point that you made midway through your remarks. So you spoke about the FASST being able to help police take time off of apprehending fugitives and focus on other issues. What issues in particular do you want to see officers focus on now amid the FAST unit being deployed across the province?
Sorry, a little tough to hear, Jonathan, but I think you said something about other tasks that you're asking them to do. Is that correct?
No, I wanted to know, since FAST is now going to be taking care of fugitive apprehension, more so fugitive apprehension, what tasks would you like to, what would you like to see police officers focus more on now that they don't have to worry about fugitive apprehension as much?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I think I mentioned that. I mean, what we're trying to do here, like, I'm not, I listen. I listen to what people in the community say. I listen to what the police say. I listen to what frontline workers say. And, there's a lot of frontline workers. Doesn't matter if we're talking about Calgary, Edmonton, RCMP, Lethbridge, Medicine Hat, or wherever there are frontline police officers. Many of them are really just trying to get to calls of service. I mean, and doing what they can as frontline officers. And so if we can alleviate some pressure off of them by having a fugitive apprehension team, or we have the scan teams as an example, which can be very time intensive in order to, when you have a problem residence as an example, if we can free up police officers to attend calls of service in order to support the community, I think that's just a step in the right direction. And I know the sheriffs, they work very closely with all police services in Alberta in order to provide that service. And, they're also thinking outside of the box. In fact, I even heard a story today where there was, a problem residence and with potential fugitives in the Lethbridge area, and the SCAN team was able to work very collaboratively with the FAST team in order to not only apprehend fugitives, but also make sure that a house was taken out of circulation that was a problem for the community. So this is something where my expectation of all law enforcement, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but these are things that we've been trained to, is to always think outside the box and act in the best interest of the community.
Seeing that we don't have any more questions on the line, I'd like to thank everyone for coming today. This concludes our announcement.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks.